And how are you, my friend?
Outstanding, my friends. You've got Brian Wu on the mound tonight. You don't need me right now. You got Brian Wu.
Well, on the heels of those first two games, John, it was, we were riding high. I mean, they had three shutouts in a row over the Pirates, back-to-back games of 1-0. The pitching was just out of this world. Offense, okay, wasn't stellar, but they won. And then they go up against a Yankee team who had lost 6 in a row and 6 of 7. They were scuffling, and all of a sudden they look like the Bronx Bombers again when the Mariners get to town. And it makes you feel like, all right, did the Mariners take advantage of a weak team in the Pirates, and now we're seeing what they're made of against a good team? Or how do you contrast the two?
This is what happens when the team is average. And that's what I think the Mariners are. Now, they still can get better as the season goes along. But when we ask the question, why are they now, despite a very auspicious start when it looked like maybe the division would be theirs for the taking, why are they now tied for the last playoff spot in the American League? And I think it's exactly what we're describing here, is that on their best days, they can beat anyone. And on their worst days, they can lose to anyone. Now, the Yankees aren't just anyone. They're still a really good team themselves. They had a really rough stretch, and you knew they were going to get well at some point. And, of course, the Mariners have been on the unfortunate end of that equation. So this is life as a fringe playoff team in the American League. The Mariners, for me, they still do not hit well enough top to bottom to consistently beat good pitching. And that is what the test becomes. Honestly, it's the kind of team that the Yankees still have. They're really reliant on Aaron Judge, as we know. But you look at the teams that are leading their divisions right now in the American League. The Astros, they've got a pretty good top to bottom team. The Blue Jays, what they've been able to do. The Tigers, they have an excellent top to bottom team with a guy who's an all-star, Javi Baez, batting ninth for them. That's what a first-place team looks like. The Mariners right now are not that. They have potential, but I think this last series against the Yankees, of course, leading into now, it's going to be a pretty tough series against the Tigers, show why this team is exactly where they are, which is clinging to the final playoff spot in the American League.
I don't know, JP. I'm not trying to push the panic button or anything, but then I was started thinking, can they do enough at the trade deadline? Because you just look at, the Yankees up and down. I mean, there's 6 guys hitting over 250, and they just have mashers all the way through their lineup seemingly. And it just made me think, man, can they even really do enough trade wise to bring the offense? I don't want to say up to Yankee level, but somewhere near that and win.
They can if they're sufficiently motivated. And I think this is where the next few weeks become really important. They don't have to necessarily be in first place by the end of July, but you need to show the front office something that this team is worth adding to. So whether that ends up being more contributions from even a younger guy like Young, Williamson, they've obviously had to rely on some younger players along the journey here, but they need to show you more from guys who are not named Cal Raleigh, that they belong in the conversation and that this roster is worth sacrificing some talent to upgrade. Now, I want to draw your attention to one part of the farm system here. You've got Colt Emerson, he's at Everett, and then you've got Felton Celestin, who's at Modesto. 2 shortstops who are both 19 years of age. They're one level apart. They're kind of similar in terms of how they're regarded within the farm system. And you do wonder, and I'm of the mind here that shortstop is usually the position that you want to have a lot of because sometimes they move off that position. And that certainly has been the case where at times the guys have adjusted and moved elsewhere off of shortstop. Emerson a little bit, but he's played a lot of shortstop, obviously, in the minor leagues this season. This becomes the question, and where I see there being some tradable depth. You've got Emerson, Young, Celestin, all are middle infielders, all roughly the same age. Again, Young's already in the big leagues. To me, you could probably trade one of those 3. And we have seen them in the past. Noelvi Marte, of course, was part of the deal when they brought back Castillo. That type of a transaction this team has made before. And it looks to me like their tradable depth, unless it's Harry Ford potentially. Obviously, he's probably not going to be the catcher in Seattle anytime soon. So you start to look around and consider different options. Ford is probably the guy from a depth standpoint the Mariners can most likely part with just because of Cal's presence. But again, you got 3 middle infielders, all roughly the same age. They can't all play shortstop at the same time. And I do think you have to make the difficult decision on which one you can trade and which guys are really part of the future. And so I'm sure if I'm a team that's selling a bat, whatever it might be, maybe I'm the Diamondbacks looking through the organization, I'd be paying very close attention. Emerson, Young, Stelton to see who potentially could be the one that they move.
Who are the, I guess outside of the Rockies and the White Sox, who are the obvious sellers? Because we've talked about, especially in the American League, everybody feels like they're in it. They're within a couple games, so we feel like we're a player away. So they're not going to be dealing their chips, so to speak. Do you feel like that's going to get ironed out and there's going to be a lot more sellers in the next week or two? Or do you feel like everybody's going to go up to that deadline feeling like, no, we're in this, so the group of sellers is going to be significantly smaller?
Bob, you asked that question with a very important word, which is obvious. How many obvious sellers are there? The Orioles are an obvious seller. I would say I would add them to that list. Ryan O'Hearn is someone that we've talked about before. He's going to be an all-star corner bat, first base DH. I think he would look great in a Mariner uniform. The other guys you consider at the third base position, Eugenio Suarez, of course, familiar to Mariner fans because of what he did in his first tenure as a Seattle player. The Diamondbacks are a little below 500, and I do think that they are more likely to sell than buy. But the question becomes, how aggressively would they do it? They've got Suarez, Gallen, Josh Naylor, all of whom you could argue are fits to varying degrees for the Mariners. And the Diamondbacks and Mariners have frequently traded in the past. I think of those guys, I would probably say Suarez is the best fit, maybe Naylor a secondary fit. And as we've talked before, even though the rotation has been and remains a strong point for the Mariners, I would still like to add one more arm just in case. I'm not saying I would add – Gallen's more than a just-in-case arm.
Yeah.
But there are guys out there that I think the Mariners could add that would give them some insurance against potential injuries over the final 2 months of the season. So I do think that the Diamondbacks, they're not the most obvious seller, Bob, but they're the one that I think is the most intriguing for the Mariners because I think both their corner bats would help Seattle.
Yep.
And then – if they're one strained ligament away from Gallen being a really important guy potentially too. So stay tuned on those different scenarios.
Hey, I know this has been thrown out there quite a bit, and I thought it was a pretty clever way to look at it is like if you put Judge on the Mariners and Cal on the Yankees as far as the MVP race goes, no question that, everybody's going to just appreciate the heck out of what Cal does, right? I mean, it's absolutely going to be Cal Raleigh, right?
Well, that's a great question. I would say that there is maybe that Yankee mystique and that focus on that particular franchise. But I also believe that the description that you offer there is not necessarily going to be determinative. There were years, obviously, when Trout won the MVP and Ohtani won the MVP, when the Angels were an afterthought in terms of the larger picture of the American League. So I don't think that it's necessarily the impediment that it would have been 25 years ago. And I'm not voting this year. I just got my assignments. I'm going to be manager of the year and rookie of the year, which I'm excited about. So I can opine freely on this one and not have to cloak my true opinions at all. I can permission to speak freely here. But I think that the first half MVP, if you were to look at the first half MVP, I would likely give it to Cal because I just think that production at that position is so extraordinary and historic and something we've never seen before that it is special. And you take Cal away from the Mariners, they're nowhere close to a playoff team. And again, if you take Judge away from the Yankees, you might actually probably say the same thing. I mean, they may still be somewhere in the conversation, but the Yankees are the Yankees because of number 99. There is no wrong answer here. I think it's apparent to me that they're 1 and 2 in some order. It's not exactly a shocking statement to make. But so I would say in a narrow vote, if I had a ballot in front of me right now for the first half only, I would say Cal is number 1 for me and Judge number 2. But you look at the second half, and one area of concern, I guess I would say 2 areas of concern. Number 1, the Yankees are right now a better team than the Mariners. And if you are a voter who does take team success into consideration in some way, shape, or form, again, it should not be the number 1 thing. But if you believe that a player is the reason why his team made the playoffs, I tend to give extra credit for that. Winning is valued in this game. I think winning is important. This is an individual contribution to a team award. And so I do consider the context of the team. It is in no way, shape, or form. I'll be clear about this. It is no way a binary, oh my gosh, either they're in the playoffs or they're out of the playoffs, and that determines if I vote for a player. That's not what I'm saying here. But the context of the team's success is important and has been important to me when I have voted for it. That's just how I look at the game and how I look at the award. That being said, Cal and the performance of the Mariners right now they're close enough. It's not as though, oh my gosh, the bullpen blew 1 game in May and it takes Cal from being the MVP to not. That's absurd. They're in the conversation. They're there. They're a playoff caliber team because of Cal. And the Yankees are a playoff caliber team because of Judge. Mm-hmm. And Cal's defensive value is so unique that I do think that is the determining piece. But if the Yankees go on, let's say, to win their division and the Mariners miss the playoffs entirely, it becomes a little tougher. Right now, of course, the Yankees are a wild card team. But if the Yankees win the division and Judge has his massive second half and Cal slows down a little bit, which, by the way, basically every catcher in the history of the game slows down in the second half because it's just that demanding, and the Mariners slump and they miss the playoffs, it's probably going to be hard to vote for the overall electorate to vote for Cal in that circumstance. So yeah. I'm just giving that little warning. But right now, if I have a ballot in front of me, Cal's my choice.
Jon, you're the man. We appreciate you, my friend. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll do it again next week.
Sounds great. I'll give you an even more definitive vote once all the first half games are done. Once I get a chance to watch Cal play against the Tigers this weekend, then I'll have even more intel for you, okay?
Can't wait. Can't wait. Thanks, Jon.
Looking forward to it. All the best, guys.
There you go. The great Jon Morosi with us each and every week. Always an awesome conversation. If you missed any part of it.